Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Bedtime Stories. Tonight, we delve into one of the most chilling and perplexing mysteries that has haunted conspiracy theorists and UFO enthusiasts for decades. A tale that treads the fine line between government secrecy and something far more otherworldly. Who or what are the men in black?
Dark Bedtime Tales.
Back in 1968, the Condon Committee, which was investigating UFO phenomena, sought to understand public attitudes toward these mysterious occurrences. They posed a question to a cross-section of the American public, asking whether they believed that a government agency maintained a top-secret file on UFO reports, deliberately withheld from the public. The response was startling. An overwhelming majority, nearly two-thirds of those surveyed, answered true. Among teenagers, the number soared to almost 75%. If that survey were conducted today, it's likely that percentage would be even higher. We live in an era where information and misinformation flows freely. The advent of the internet has made it almost second nature to question and accuse those in power. Yet, just over half a century ago, skepticism of the government wasn't as widespread as it is now. One could argue that much of this mistrust began in the late 1940s, in the aftermath of what is now known as the Roswell Incident. That event, whether based on truth or born from rumor, captured the public's imagination and introduced the concept of government cover-ups into the mainstream. Throughout the 1950s, the idea of flying saucers and visitors from outer space was still in its infancy. Yet, even then, UFO witnesses and investigators alike began to report encounters with mysterious figures known as the Men in Black. These enigmatic men were said to visit those who had witnessed UFOs, urging them, often with threats, to remain silent. The Men in Black were often described as wearing black suits and dark hats, traveling in black cars, usually of the classic American variety. Initially, it was believed that they were government agents tasked with suppressing any mention of UFOs or extraterrestrial activity in the public domain. However, over the years, this assumption has evolved. Some now believe these men might not be human at all. Perhaps they are extraterrestrial beings themselves, disguised in human form. In 1997, the film Men in Black brought this conspiracy theory into the realm of pop culture, portraying the Men in Black as comedic, albeit secretive, government agents dealing with extraterrestrial beings. But for those who claim to have encountered these shadowy figures, it is no laughing matter. Consider the case of Albert K. Bender, a former U.S. Air Force serviceman turned author and amateur ufologist. In 1952, Bender founded the International Flying Saucers Bureau, an organization dedicated to investigating and reporting on UFO activity. The organization was an immediate success, publishing a weekly newsletter that reached a small but dedicated audience of around 20,000 people worldwide. However, in early 1953, Bender suddenly and mysteriously shut down his operation. The final issue of his newsletter contained a chilling warning. We advise those engaged in saucer work to please be very cautious. His colleagues noticed that Bender seemed deeply disturbed, as if something had frightened him beyond words. He didn't eat or sleep properly for weeks, plagued by unbearable headaches. For years, Bender refused to discuss what had happened. Then, almost a decade later, he finally broke his silence. Bender revealed that he had been visited by three men dressed in black. These men had appeared out of thin air, warning him in no uncertain terms to cease all investigations into UFOs. The visit left Bender shaken to his core, and he never resumed his work in ufology. But Bender's story is just one of many. Consider the chilling experience of Dr. Herbert Hopkins, a well-respected family physician from Old Orchard Beach, Maine. On the night of September 11, 1976, Dr. Hopkins was home alone, studying a UFO case that had occurred a few months prior. The phone suddenly rang. The voice on the other end identified itself as a representative of a UFO organization from New Jersey, which would later turn out to be a fabrication. The caller asked if Hopkins was alone and if he could visit to discuss the UFO case. Hopkins, intrigued, agreed. Moments after hanging up, Hopkins heard a knock at the door. To his astonishment, the man from the phone was already at his doorstep. Even if he had called from a neighboring house, there was no way he could have arrived so quickly. Remember, this was long before the advent of mobile phones. Hopkins described the man as tall, thin, and dressed in a dark, ill-fitting suit. His skin was unnaturally pale, and when he removed his hat, Hopkins noticed he had no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing. His lips were a bright, almost artificial shade of red, and when he spoke, his voice was flat and expressionless. There was no intonation, no emotion, just an eerie, robotic monotone. At one point during their conversation, the man asked Hopkins to produce a copper coin, which the doctor happened to have in his pocket. Hopkins complied, and as he held the coin in the palm of his hand, he watched in disbelief as it began to change color from copper to silver. Then it became blurry, as if going out of focus, and finally it disappeared altogether. The visitor warned Hopkins to destroy all of his UFO research or face the same fate as the coin. As the man delivered this final warning, Hopkins noticed that his speech began to slow down, becoming slurred, as if the visitor was struggling to maintain his energy. The strange man abruptly stood up, stating that his energy was running low and he needed to leave. Hopkins showed him to the door, watching as the man staggered down the steps, holding onto the railing as if he were in pain. The visitor then hobbled around the corner of the house and disappeared from sight. Moments later, Hopkins saw a bright flash of light and heard nothing more. When his family returned home later that evening, they found Dr. Hopkins in a state of shock, sitting in his living room with every light in the house turned on. He was deeply disturbed by the encounter, and it left him questioning everything he knew. These tales might sound unbelievable, but they are just a few of the many accounts of encounters with the men in black. Despite the skepticism surrounding them, some evidence has emerged that keeps the mystery alive. In 2012, a video surfaced online showing CCTV footage from a hotel near Niagara Falls. The footage, recorded in 2008, captured two identical men entering the hotel. They were tall, thin, dressed in black, and their movements were eerily synchronized. Hotel staff reported that the men had icy blue eyes, never blinked, and seemed to know the innermost thoughts of those they spoke to. The men were inquiring about a recent UFO sighting reported by one of the hotel employees, but when they couldn't locate him, they left as abruptly as they had arrived. The footage itself is shrouded in controversy. It appeared online just as the third Men in Black movie was being promoted, leading some to believe it was part of a viral marketing campaign. However, the timestamp on the footage dates back to 2008, years before the film's release, leaving many to wonder if the encounter was real after all. But the story of the Men in Black doesn't end there. Reports of these mysterious figures aren't limited to the United States. Similar encounters have been reported in Europe, Australia, and other parts of the world. While modern descriptions of these individuals can mostly be traced back to Bender's account, the phenomenon itself is not new. In fact, it predates the 1950s by hundreds of years. During the Middle Ages, people often reported encountering men dressed in black robes and hats, malevolent entities who exhibited strange and unnatural abilities. These beings were often described in similar ways, leading many to believe they were manifestations of the same dark force. Some even suggested that these men were demonic in nature, perhaps even the devil himself. Could it be that the Men in Black are not of this world? Are they spiritual or paranormal entities rather than extraterrestrial beings? Some theorists have drawn connections between the men in black and other supernatural phenomena, such as shadow people or the infamous Hat Man. Others have linked them to the equally mysterious black-eyed children, with reports of these two strange beings traveling together in the same vehicles. Regardless of the theory, there is one aspect of the men in black that is widely accepted by those on the fringes of society. They are sinister, malevolent figures whose presence never bodes well. Witnesses often describe feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as if they were being watched or controlled. And after an encounter with the men in black, people are often left shaken, paranoid, and deeply disturbed. One particularly eerie case occurred in 1967 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a town that would later become famous for the Mothman sightings. Mary Heyer, a local journalist, had been covering the strange occurrences in the area, including sightings of a large, winged creature and unexplained lights in the sky. One evening, she was working late at her office when a man in black entered. The man was short, with thick glasses that obscured much of his face. His black suit was slightly out of date, and his speech was strange, as if he were unfamiliar with human conversation. He asked Heyer about her articles on the Mothman and UFOs, then suddenly leaned forward and picked up a ballpoint pen from her desk, staring at it in fascination as if he had never seen one before. Heyer offered him the pen, and he quickly took it and left the office without another word. A few days later, another man in black visited Heyer's home. This man was tall and dark-skinned, and his manner was more threatening. He asked her about the people she had spoken to regarding the Mothman, implying that she should stop her investigations. When she refused to be intimidated, the man left, but Heyer remained on edge, constantly looking over her shoulder, fearful that she was being watched. These strange men, with their unnatural behavior and cryptic warnings, seemed to come out of nowhere, always appearing after someone had witnessed something they shouldn't have. It was as if they were part of a larger, more sinister plot to keep the truth hidden, to ensure that no one knew the full extent of what was really happening in the skies above. The men in black are not always described as wearing suits. In some cases, they have been seen in black military-style uniforms, driving vehicles with no license plates or identification. Their cars, often black sedans, are sometimes said to have an otherworldly quality, moving silently or disappearing without a trace. Witnesses have also reported seeing men in black in pairs or small groups, always with the same stoic, emotionless demeanor. One of the most unsettling aspects of these encounters is the feeling of helplessness that victims often describe. The men in black seem to have a way of knowing exactly what their targets are thinking, sometimes even before they do. They possess an unnerving ability to manipulate the environment around them, such as turning off streetlights, making objects disappear, or creating a sudden sense of dread that leaves their victims paralyzed with fear. In 1978, in Paris, France, a well-known UFO researcher named Jean-Pierre Petit claimed to have been visited by men in black after he published an article revealing sensitive information about a classified French military project that allegedly involved extraterrestrial technology. Petit described the men as unusually tall and thin, with pale skin and piercing eyes. They warned him to stop his research or face dire consequences. Petit, like many others before him, was left deeply shaken and abandoned his work on the subject. Even more recently, in 2008, a man named Shane Sovar, a hotel manager in Niagara Falls, claimed to have witnessed UFO activity in the area. Shortly thereafter, he and a security guard reported being visited by two men in black. The men were captured on the hotel's security cameras, but their presence caused a deep sense of unease among the staff and guests. Sovar described the men as identical in appearance, both bald, with no eyebrows, and wearing black suits and fedoras. They asked for Sovar by name, but when he wasn't available, they left, leaving everyone who saw them in a state of fear and confusion. The men in black have also been connected to the phenomenon of black helicopters. unmarked, silent helicopters that are often seen hovering near UFO sightings or the homes of those who have witnessed something unusual. These helicopters are sometimes reported in conjunction with Men in Black sightings, leading some to speculate that the two are part of the same secretive organization, working together to monitor and suppress knowledge of extraterrestrial activity. The connection between the Men in Black and shadowy government agencies is a common thread in many of these stories. Some believe that the Men in Black are part of a secret branch of the government, possibly connected to agencies like the CIA, FBI, or even a more clandestine organization like the NSA or DARPA. These agencies, it is theorized, may be working in conjunction with extraterrestrial beings, using the Men in Black to keep the public from discovering the truth. Others suggest a more metaphysical explanation, proposing that the Men in Black are not human at all, but rather entities from another dimension or reality. These beings, it is believed, can take on human form but struggle to fully understand or mimic human behavior, resulting in their strange, almost robotic mannerisms. They are seen as enforcers of a cosmic law, preventing humans from learning too much about the universe and its many mysteries. Yet, despite all these theories and the numerous accounts of encounters with the Men in Black, their true nature remains a mystery. Are they government agents, extraterrestrial beings, dimensional travelers, or something even more unfathomable? It's a question with no clear answer, and perhaps that's what makes the Men in Black so terrifying. Their existence remains shrouded in mystery, and for those who claim to have encountered them, the experience is nothing short of horrifying. If you ever find yourself witnessing something out of the ordinary, a UFO, a strange phenomenon, and later hear a knock at your door, you might want to think twice before answering. The Men in Black are out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to silence those who know too much. Good night, and sleep well.